We've been a bit all over the place this month with the MA podcast, mainly because of the big news we started the month with. And if you don't know what this news is, you need to check the episode notes. But we're returning to a bit of normal programming with today's episode, and we're continuing our discussion of folklore in modern African literature, this time going into the heart of the African continent itself with the late Congolese writer Sonny Labutansi's Life and a Half, or La Vie et Demie. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Mythological Africans podcast, where we read and talk about stories from African mythology and folklore. I am your host, Helen Nde. Chaidana's monologue began to spread like a brush fire over her entire being. It distanced her a bit from Kapahache, but she had things she couldn't say to anyone but herself. She had a growing need for back there. Back there, you fight by the skin of your teeth to stay alive, and this skin and these teeth have their charm, bitter but charm nonetheless. After all, back there, women had a special ration of oxygen. The beauties. There was a lot of room for them in champagne, in dances, in streets, in beds, all the good places that come back to women in a country where men are pebbles. This leaf, you put it under your tongue to become a tree man. This leaf you chew so that the game animals are not scared away by your odor. This leaf you rub it so the snakes stay away from you. This leaf is to hold your breath. This leaf, this vine, this root, this sap, this plant. Kapahache poured the forest into Chaidana's hollow brain. This sap you put in your eyes to see very far or to see at night. This sap you put in your nostrils to smell an animal or another man at a distance. That sap makes you sleep, and that sap keeps you from falling asleep. This sap creates a mirage or the effects of wine, the whole range of fish, the whole range of drugs, the words that provoke tears, the words that bring good luck, the words that kill. You will no longer die of poison because you escaped death from Wongoyano. It's the nastiest sap in the forest. After it leaves your body, you can live through 200 rainy seasons. All the snakes in the forest could bite you and you wouldn't feel a thing. We had an uncle, Kayadanu, the eldest in our family tree. Gombloyano saved him and he lived through 208 rainy seasons. Tradition has it that there is a vine in the forest, and if you eat it, you can't die anymore. You catch the life of the forest. You become manroot. Everyone looks for you. Every clan, every generation. Nobody finds you. But the vine exists. It gives birth to the forest with its life sap. You got away with Bomboyano. If we find the others again, you will be mother of the clan. The forest will tell you its secrets at night. It will tell you what ears do not hear. This excerpt comes from the middle of Sonny Labotance's just mind-bendingly fantastical book, Life and a Half, and it is written as political commentary, as mythology and folklore. But as we will find, the author had, a very clear idea how he wanted his book to be perceived. So Sonny Labutansi was born Marcel Sonny in what was then known as the Belgian Congo, and today it's the Democratic Republic of Congo. His family moved to Brazzaville in the neighboring Republic of Congo, different from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And they moved there when he was 12 years old, so he adopted that nationality. And over his life, he was a teacher of English and French, a writer of novels and plays, a civil servant, and a political activist. Life and a Half was published in 1979, and it was, I believe, the second of many books and plays Sonny Labutansi wrote. The book chronicles the events which unfold in a mythical African country in the grips of a series of dictators. And it's a grisly and quite honestly stomach-turning story of greed and corruption and betrayal and murder threaded with elements of indigenous African folklore, science fiction, Christian ideology, and political commentary. So there are ghosts and other such revenants. There are forest beings, as we were just reading, with near encyclopedic knowledge of plants and animals. There are morally compromised clergymen, and there are genetically engineered flies capable of decimating cities, and bombs that will turn whole regions into pure carbon, and so much more. And word is, when this book was published, it just detonated in the Francophone African literary scene because nothing had ever been written of its kind. And if you read the book, or if you've read it, you know exactly what I mean. There is just one other book in all of African literature that I have read so far that left me feeling as unsettled as this book has, and that is The Palm Wine Drinker by Amos Tutuola, which is a similar fever dream of a book. And when he was asked about this book, when he was still alive, Sonny Labutansi insisted that he had written a fable. It was totally mythical, no element of truth to it. But if you've spent any time at all on the African continent, you will know from experience just how weird the relationship between religion, tradition, and party politics is. It's cacophonous, but at the same time kind of symbiotic. These three forces dominate the very fabric of people's existence, and this will start by the very circumstances of your birth, whether you're born at home, which is usually traditional birth, or if you're born at a religious affiliated hospital, if you're born at a government hospital. It continues with the kind of education and socialization you get, and flows into the kind of work you do, and manifests as the kind of life that you live. And when war comes, right, when war shows up, tradition, religion, and party politics are almost always the substance used to weave the webs of propaganda that are used to push agendas to various ends. And this book, as I mentioned earlier, just takes all these elements of religion, culture, folklore, and politics, and just weaves this story, which is it's hard to describe what the book is like. It's one to be experienced. And Sonny Labutansi insisted that he had not written political commentary of any kind, that he had written a fable, is what he called it. But this highlights just what it is that myths and folklore, in their role of alternate and often embellished historical accounts, offer us, right? Because sometimes the facts of an event are so strange, so mind-bendingly overwhelming. Just thinking about them as this grand fantastical tale that happened in another time and another place creates the necessary psychological and emotional distance to process them. And my read is that this is probably what was happening here a little bit, because if you read Sonny Labutansi's life, his work, his political activism tangled up with the government at this time. And if you know the history of the Congo, then you probably know what I'm talking about. And, speaking for myself, I know sometimes that just the thought of being alive, the sheer fact of it, the processes, big and small, the beauty and cruelty of it, the logic and just complete random serendipity that have over time led to this moment where I sit here, talking to you about stories that people from time before time told themselves. It's overwhelming. The science of it is not enough to make it make sense. And, Life and a Half will certainly not make sense if you read it expecting, a logic type story. But if you read it as the author intended, as a fable of mythical proportions in a land where anything is possible, then it will make total and complete sense. That being said, body horror and gore, and there's a lot of that in this book, even in mythology and folklore, is just not my thing. So suffice it to say, I will probably not be reading this book again unless I absolutely have to. So I hope you read it, Life and a Half, or La Vie et Demie by Sonny Labutansi. And thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week with more from African mythology and folklore.